Hi guys, my name is D.Smith. I am the director and cinematographer for the film Kokomo City, which will be featured in the Panorama section.
It's kind of funny because it's like with that moment of the car going by like being broken down but making it sound like it's a motherfucking Mustang or a Porsche. It's like that's what we give. We're good at being broken down, but before people see us, we have a great way of making ourselves stand out. Having that loud roar. You know, it's like we gotta be the bitch in the room with the 28 inches. You gotta be the bitch with the biggest boobs, the biggest body, you know? And it's like, but meanwhile, whether you use materialistic things to cover it up or not, are you really at peace? You know, are you really at peace with yourself, knowing that the best of you is only seen when you're a survivalist? Something like for me that I've always had to think about is the best of you only when you're seen as a survivalist, because that man that's giving you the money, that man that's helping us pay our light bill, okay? But he don't gotta worry about that, because his Stacy, his Barbara Ann, oh, trust, she's laid up. That bitch don't gotta suck a dick, flip monkeys, tickle a prostate to get her light bill paid, okay?
Hi, welcome to the Teddy TV. My name is Zsombor Bobák, and this time we are discussing the film KOKOMO City. Heidi, welcome to the Teddy. Welcome to the Berlinale. We are really glad to have you here. Let's talk about KOKOMO City. First of all, how did you meet all the characters that are the main protagonists of this film?
Uh, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is absolutely an honor, and I'm super excited to be working with you guys. My how I discovered the characters were really randomly going to Instagram and finding more or less the more popular, famous trans women. And then I went through their comments to find these girls. I went through
Uh-huh.
the comments to find, um, you know, the regular girls, the everyday
Yeah.
trans girls, well, at least what I thought were. And that research led to one discovery to another discovery, and I ended up getting the cast that I wanted.
Wow, amazing. And was it like any difficult to get them involved in the project, or were they just happy to finally have a platform where they can tell their stories?
Mhm. There were a couple girls that gave me a really hard time, but obviously they're not in the film. I wanted people that just got it right away. I don't want you to have to think about it. I don't want you to have to question or I'll get back to you. That's not what I was looking for. I was
Yeah.
looking for someone that understood the urgency of this film and also the urgency of a fresher narrative. And I think most women in
Yeah.
the transgender community are hungry for something new, um, something more relatable, something more realistic, more tangible, and frankly more impactful. So I think these girls were pretty excited about the opportunity.
Yeah. Um, it was also interesting for me to read. I read a bit about your process, how the whole project came about. Can you tell us a bit about how this whole thing started? Because as far as I know, it was not a very smooth sailing.
No, no, it wasn't. Not until actually recently.
Mm.
um, well, I produced music. I'm a music producer. I've worked with everyone from Lil Wayne to Sierra. You know, I've
Yeah.
worked with a lot of artists, and over the last 15 years, that's pretty much been my life. And I will dare to say that's all I know. Um, so when I started to transition to female, immediately, my contacts and my revenue stopped, and I no longer was able to support myself. And I went to a very dark place, very depressed, and even at points very suicidal. And so maybe in 2018, 2019, I had an idea to do a documentary, and it was about 2020 when I actually really started to shoot the film.
Yeah.
And that was because I was thinking, gosh, with everything I've accomplished and everything that I've done right, the right way by
Yeah.
the book, I've still have nothing to show for it. It was taken away just like that. I felt like an outsider, lonely,
Yeah.
and I didn't have anyone fighting for me. And I was like, how difficult could it be for transgender women that are even less fortunate than I am? And I was drawn to find these women and tell their stories because at that point I really could relate, to the desperation and the outcastness of being transgender.
Yeah, and did you, because what I read is that you even reached out to certain filmmakers
Oh yeah.
to make this
Oh yeah.
film, and at the end of the day, you had to take complete control because you were left alone with the
Oh my
project.
goodness. Absolutely. I have emails and text messages of me, and I was reading them a couple weeks ago, and I was so embarrassed. Like I was so desperate and eager and excited, and I was begging
Yeah.
people to work with me.
Mm.
And the universe allowed that process not to happen. And it happened the way that it should have. I didn't even think about me doing it. But then it came to me. It's like, well, no matter what director I use, I'm going to be micromanaging them anyway.
Yeah.
I probably would have been a complete bitch to work with because I saw a very specific, clear vision of what I wanted to do. So this worked out quite well for me.
Yeah, and how did you approach that? Because the film also has a very distinct visual identity. Can
Mm.
you tell a bit about this vision that you had and how did you accomplish it? How did you translate it into the language of film?
Sure. So when things kind of got a little weird in New York, right before the pandemic, I was walking around the city filming. I was just taking pictures with my phone in black and white. I always put everything in black and white. And as eerie and creepy as the city looked, there was still something so beautiful and pristine about the photos and the subjects, no matter what I shot. And when I put it in black and white, it just felt better. It felt appropriate for me. And and I thought, you know, people kept saying you should post these, you should put these on, on YouTube. You should, and I was like, no, it should be something else. I want to do something more. And I was inspired to do the documentary in black and white because I think the grit
Yeah.
and the rawness of the girls' stories and their vocals and their appearance and how raw they are, it's just beautiful. But on top of that, to add black and white makes it timeless and classic and
Mm.
even elevates it a bit. So there was no question that that's what I wanted to do. I knew that before I even shot the first frame.
Yeah. So yeah, I was wondering because like when I was watching the film, and having in mind this whole process that you had to go through with realizing the project, it really reminded me of these early days of do-it-yourself guerrilla type of queer filmmaking, which has like a very strong sense of urgency and immediacy. And I was wondering if there were any kind of works um, that influenced you in any way, or that you took some inspiration and power from for this particular project.
Mm. I, I mean, not to sound cliche, but I've only taken things that have inspired me throughout my life, whether it's experiences or things creatively along the way. and I've kind of meshed them into what I want to do. And, it kind of made things into what they are. Like, for example, I've always been influenced by Salvador Dali, who is one of my favorite visual artists. He's uh, basically the king of surrealism. And he was a huge inspiration on me,
Mm.
not just visually, but even attitude wise. It's like, I don't know who inspired this guy. I don't know who could have inspired him. His work was so breathtakingly unique. I just wanted to approach doing this film, no rules. Don't come at me with I can't, I can, I can, I should. I just want, I think that was like one of the biggest benefits of working alone is that I didn't have that burden of people's opinions or, that thing in my head
Yeah.
questioning my first initial thought. That process was, I think, at somehow, no matter where I go in the future, I still want to incorporate some of that where I am alone and I am able to not be told what looks good or what are the rules. And you know I still want to learn, but I also
Yeah.
want to incorporate myself in it and be the main driving force of what I create. um yeah, so I take what has inspired me throughout the years and incorporated it into my work.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we talk about that there is a very um, intense sense of urgency and immediacy to the film, and I think once someone watches it, it comes clear why. So the film definitely speaks for itself in a way. But for those who haven't seen it yet, can you explain a bit what was this? Because as you said as well, you also had this urge that okay, it has to happen and it has to happen immediately. Can you walk us through this? Where does this originate from?
um well, you mean the actual film?
Yeah, and also like this urgency in it, this like
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
I have to
sure.
tell this now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, I think at that point, before I did the film, there were a lot of um, transgender content, whether it's TV shows or uh, commercials or whatnot. And to me, my personal perspective, I always felt like a lot of our narrative, a lot of what trans women say feels watered down and a bit measured.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to do something refreshing because I feel like the transgender community, in some ways, we've reached a ceiling of communication. Like it's only so many things that we could repeat, right?
Yeah.
There's only so many things people want to hear over and over. As sad as statistics are about trans women being killed, sometimes these things fall to deaf ears. Like people aren't drawn to trauma as much as we think they are or as much as they used to. So I wanted to do something more relatable. I want to say uplifting, but I just wanted something more raw where people could actually gravitate to and be drawn to in an authentic way and not felt like something was being shoved or pushed down their throats. But I personally wanted to see something like that represented on television or film. So that
Yeah.
was definitely my driving force to get this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, it was really fascinating to see because, as you said, like you kind of maybe wanted it to be like maybe uplifting, and I think it totally is because it has so many fun and light moments which are like really um bringing out like I don't know the most basic joy of life, you know.
Yes. Oh my God,
So
I got chills when you
it
said
really
that
is.
because that's literally what it is. It's just literally the basic joys of life as a human. And as trans women, we don't get to display that or express that publicly
Mhm.
because there's this, I want to say facade, but this fortress that's being built around us. And it doesn't
Yeah.
allow us to actually make that human connection with other human beings. It's like trans women have sex. We also have body parts that are natural to us, and that should not be hidden anymore. It shouldn't be taboo. Like this is the beginning of us really completely owning our humanness, you know. And the fact that you said that means a lot to me, because that's exactly the message that I want to be portrayed.
Mm. Yeah, well, in my opinion, that certainly came through full force in the
Right.
film. Um, but yeah, let's talk about also this um, very interesting discussion that goes through the entire film about the position of trans black women within the black community. Um,
Mhm.
I think that was very eye-opening, and I think it's also a lot of things have been really said out there that are maybe, I don't know, avoided to be talked about.
Mhm.
Can
Sure,
can
sure.
you tell us a bit more about this particular aspect of the film?
Well, the film is entertaining. The
Certainly.
girls are entertaining, but they have a real story to tell. And these stories are brushed under the rug because either it feels embarrassing to organizations, or it feels embarrassing to other trans women, or it's just not as glamorous, or it feels a bit, you know, um, abrasive and makes people uncomfortable. This place that we're in as trans people, this is called pioneering.
Mm,
We probably won't get to enjoy all the luxuries of being free the way, 2 generations from now will. And we have to keep in mind that a lot of our fighting and protesting and advocacy is not so much for us to benefit, but it is for the future. And we have to start this conversation, this dialogue, this stance, this perspective at some point. It's just not going to keep going on. We have to face this as Black people first. And we have to talk about this ourselves. Black people have to discuss, hey, we have gay people, we have transgender people in our community. They're also Black. Oh, and guess what? They're human too. So why don't we include them
mm,
into our community and make them a part of us? At some point, we would have to have had to have this conversation, and uh, we're going to have to talk about it, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing. That's what people are doing. It's probably not the most comfortable, glamorous thing to do, but someone has to do it.
yeah, and certainly that's what the film does, and the characters do in the film as well. And I think what was also very um, I don't know, going under the skin, how they discuss that it's not just something that they wonder, I don't know, theoretically or anything, but it all comes through their real life experiences, and they actually do have answers to why are these relations are the way they are. And so one part in the film that was, I think, very striking was this discussion around um, toxic masculinity and these particular
Mm,
masculine roles, and
mm,
how women in the community relate to that and sort of
yeah,
dependent on that.
yeah.
Um, can you maybe just very briefly talk a bit about this as well? Because I think this was very key to many of the issues that were brought up in the narrative.
Sure. Listen, to be very honest with you, gay people,
Mm,
gay men, transgender people, both men and women, lesbian women, we all know, we all are aware the type of men that frequent transgender women. We all know this. We laugh about it, we kiki about it at home, we laugh, we show each other pictures, we show each other text messages. We all know what this is. Why don't we ever discuss it in public?
mm,
Because with Black women in particular, this is why I'm most excited about this film, because Black women have been extremely supportive with this film, the process, and also the film itself. And it has been the most gratifying element, most gratifying part of doing this film. To my surprise, I'm surprised, but I'm also pleasantly surprised that I'm getting so much support from Black women. And I think we all understand where we are in this situation. You know, we love the same men, you know, and these men are dealing with a lot of us, you know, and instead of us fighting one another, I think Black women and also trans women, we're tired of fighting. And I think we want to have some sort of communicative dialogue, because it is important. It is important. And I think it's coming through in the film that we don't want to disrespect anyone. We just want to tell you the truth of what is happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
We don't want to out or embarrass or shame anyone. That's not what this film is about. It's just to educate and to bring awareness.
Yeah, certainly. One part of the many different filmic solutions in the film that was absolutely exciting to see and fascinating was these segments of reenactments, when the girls were telling their stories and you kind of reenacted them in the film. Can you tell us about how did you come to this, and how did you realize them in the film? Because like they were an absolute like joy to watch. They were so great.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, the very first girl that did the reenactment during the intro, during Leah's part, she's actually my blood sister. She's as well. She's transgender as well. And I was living with her half of the time I was finishing the film, and I needed help, and I asked her to do it. And she's so funny and fun, and it was just the absolute best to have her involved and to help me. But when I did the film, I wanted to create a film that I would want to watch. Documentaries sometimes have this very either morbid or matronly kind of delivery where it's so serious, it's so educational. And you know, I love documentaries, I love to learn, but I feel like there's a science to really drawing people in, getting them to learn. It's almost like children, like you have to kind of like make it light, but and you know, and you teach children about the ABCs, but you also, you know, give them treats and snacks and songs, you know.
Yeah.
It's, you have to keep people stimulated when you're you know, being informative. That's my approach. Not doesn't mean necessarily comedy. It just means be interesting and stimulating. I mean, we have to compete with Instagram, for crying out loud. You know.
Yeah, that's
So
for sure. Yeah. And I mean, we talked about this process that you went through, and that you kind of, I mean, you were the director of this film, the editor, you came up with this whole idea, you bought this camera, you found these girls online, and then you got to know them, and then you got their stories on film. But then in that sense, at the end of the day, it was a very collaborative process, it seems. It really hinged on your determination to do this project, your vision, your drive, but then also your interaction and like forming this very interesting creative community with these girls. Can you tell us a bit about how it all fell into place together?
sure. I mean, no matter what, you always have, no matter how many plans or, you know, letters or notes that you write to yourself, when things happen creatively and they make sense and they flow, you have to understand that it's coming from a higher source, and you have to put your ego aside and allow that help to come in and help direct you or help lift you up or inspire you. the girls for me were so open, you know, they were so available emotionally, they were available spiritually, and there weren't any egos. I was so shocked and so grateful. You know, no one had egos. Everyone was extremely giving and played a role in the overall feel of the film. You know, obviously it's a documentary. It's so I have to allow the girls to be themselves, but I also kind of like set rules where I need you to be yourself. If you're not going to be yourself and talk like yourself and just be yourself, we're not going to do makeup. We're not going to do hair. We're not doing the glam squad. We're not doing the dress. You know, I just want you to be yourself, how you are in your house. And they were surprised by that process. And you know, I had to make a couple of them, I have to reassure them that it's okay and then you could trust me. But when we got past that, I mean, my God, it was just complete magic.
Yeah. Um, I also had to think about it because obviously the story is super important. It gives voice to people that usually don't get to tell their stories. It really um, diversifies this image that recently the media created around transgender people. So obviously there are like a lot of very important things that are going on in this film, but then obviously every story can be told in many different ways and through many different media as well. So I was wondering, why exactly did you choose the moving image, so film, as the medium through which you wanted to tell this story? And also, as someone who is like its first experience with making a film, what sort of conclusions could you draw from the process? What can this medium offer in this queer trans context in storytelling?
Mm, mm. Thank you for that question. I wanted to film transgender women in a way that has never been filmed. I at the end of the day, it's a documentary, but to me, it's a film first. I wanted to do something filmic, um, very do-it-yourself. I wanted something that feels and that is true to itself as far as its independency. And I wanted to keep it as raw as possible, but I wanted to give the girls and their stories dignity and handle this as graciously as possible without softening the edges, without taking away the realness and the blackness. It was so fun to do.
Yeah.
Like my favorite part of doing this whole process was absolutely editing. That is by far my favorite thing to do.
Mm.
um, because you have the ability to really bring out so much more that you wanted to say. Even if you missed something in filming, you're going to find it in editing. You're gonna be okay. And I had to do this in film. I had to do this way. I had to. There was no other vision that I had than to have these Black trans women tell their story in a cool, edgy way. And what I did draw at the end of the day is that, you know, you have to keep your creative process intact. You have to not let people that are excited about your work, people that are excited about what you're doing, to distract you from your vision. I had a lot of that. People wanted to attach themselves to, the potential of what could happen. And it was quite distracting. And I had to kind of create boundaries as a creator and say, I'm not ready for you to come in this process yet. I'm still creating. I'm still, this is still my territory.
Yeah.
I need more time, or I need you to kind of fall back a little bit. And I know you're excited and I appreciate it, but you have to, as a creator, create boundaries around your creative process, because you could lose a lot of your initial thinking. So yeah, it was a very keen learning experience for me.
Yeah, wonderful. And the film premiered at Sundance
Yeah,
not so long ago, and
yeah.
it met rave great reviews. And tell us a bit about the audience response to the
You're gonna
film.
make me cry. You are gonna make me cry,
Oh
and I
no,
am not going to
it was not
cry.
my intention, so
Oh man. Oh God. You're good. You're actually a genius.
well,
You're
thanks.
actually a genius. You're good.
Well, thank you.
You know,
Oh no, I didn't mean to bring you to tears.
no. I know. It's okay. It's okay. It's they're tears of when you work so hard your whole life. And even though it was music, I worked so hard just to be validated. No matter how much we say, oh, I don't need them, I don't care what they say, I don't care, we as humans, we really do care.
Yeah,
When you work very hard at something, money can't buy the type of validation that you need as a creative. It just nothing compares to it. And during my music career, a lot of people had taken advantage of my moment. And to have the opportunity to basically have a new start after all of these years and have real people, you know, real people
yeah,
that don't know me, see my work that I put 3 years into, of my sleeping on couches, not having my own home, sleeping back, asking people for money, selling fruit on the side of the road, for it to come up with people giving me a standing ovation at my premiere. No award, no amount of money will ever compare to that. And I thank God that I could always go to that moment in my head when I need to. I could always see that moment where people
yeah.
are fucking smiling and crying and laughing and clapping for me on that stage. I don't even remember what your damn question was.
Well, you answered it, so you don't need to
Did I?
remember it because you answered it wonderfully.
No, I appreciate that question, because it really just changed my life. It changed my life. It gave me breath again. I was a dying soul,
Mm,
literally dying, a dying soul, trying to finish this film. I had to take things out of my mind to inspire myself, encourage myself, and tell myself, you're not crazy. It's okay. It's okay. You're gonna get through this. It's very taxing to the mind. So to go to Sundance and receive the awards and standing ovations, that's my life. My new life was given to me, and I thank God for it.
yeah. Well, and it continues. It continues in Berlin. We are really honored to have the film play at the festival, and I'm really excited to
Can't wait.
see how it's all gonna go, how the audience will respond here. I'm sure it's gonna be big.
Oh,
That's what
I
I'm
feel it. I
expecting.
feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for this lovely talk. Thank you
Oh, you
for
were amazing.
such
You
an
were you're brilliant.
exciting and fresh film.
Thank
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see where it goes from here.
you.
Yeah, thank
Me
you.
too.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best for the festival. And yeah,
Great.
hopefully we cross paths during
Oh, I
those
can't
10
wait to meet
days.
you. If you see me, grab me and hug me and say hi.
I definitely will. I
Okay,
definitely
please,
will
please.
immediately as I
Okay.
spot you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you. Thank you. Ciao.